This is Kate Olson, and I'm here at the Embrace Change Radio website Soul Talks, and I'm about to have a soul talk with Rosanne Olson, and we're going to talk about body image and how we decided to talk about this subject is Rosanne is a professional photographer, and she has written a book uh, called This Is Who I Am. And Rosanne recently did my radio show and was talking about her music. She's also a singer and songwriter. And after the show, we were talking about different things and the fact that I personally had decades where I didn't have any pictures of myself because I didn't want people to take pictures of me came up. And I already knew about her book, but she then brought up her book again, and it kind of clicked with me that we had some mutual background feelings. So I wanted to talk about them, and I read her book, and it's very profound. And so now I'd like to introduce Rosanne and have her tell you a little bit about herself before we start talking. Hi, Rosanne.
Hi, Kate. Thank you for inviting me.
How are you today?
I'm great and glad to be talking to you. I love to talk about my pet project, which is working with women. And what information can I give you?
We'll just give them a little synopsis about your background so they know who you are.
Okay. All right. Well, so I have been a photographer for a long time, for about 40 years. I started out in a field of medicine called, medical technology, and then that migrated to nuclear medicine. So I worked in medicine for about 7 years. And one great thing about that is that I got to work very closely with people who were in very scary situations, cancer diagnosis and that kind of thing. And it really taught me deep compassion. Then I ended up going to graduate school in journalism, and I finished that, and I worked as I wanted to be a photographer, so I worked in photography at a newspaper when I finished that, and that work was just wonderful. I got to work with all kinds of people, ranging from a woman on death row or who was just released from death row to Carmelite nuns who were cloistered, and musicians, and Nobel Prize winners, a whole wide range of people. I really love working with people and doing portraits. So 5 years of that work, and my husband and I moved to Seattle from Eugene, Oregon, where I had my own business for the last 33 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And in that time, I've worked in advertising and fine art. And all along, my favorite thing has always been just working with people. I love doing portraits of people who have never been photographed before, especially because I find that it's a very deep experience. It can be scary, but then I think when we're finished, I do a lot of talking. I actually call it phototherapy. We end up arriving at a new and deep love of that person in front of the camera. So it's quite an incredible experience. And anyway, so the last few years I've slowed down with the big advertising jobs and just been focusing on portraiture. 11 years ago, I authored this book called This Is Who I Am, which is really my life's work. I feel it's my most important work because it's geared to helping people be compassionate toward one another, and especially toward themselves. But the women in the book, and there are 54 women in this book, ages 19 to 95, and they all share something about their experience of being in their own bodies, their experiences dealing with eating disorders, or, you know, some people really love their bodies, and some people who are so beautiful really despise their bodies. So it's just kind of an interesting cross section of women included in the book, and I think people who look at it can get an idea. There it is. This is who I am.
Yes.
I'll
And
hold it.
it's a book of nude portraits of all different, a cross section of all different women, body types, ages.
Colors. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So um, I, I liked the concept of the book before I got the book. So I didn't know that it was, nude portraits. So that part kind of, it was a surprise to me. And I first, wondered, why nude? Because, I'd been thinking about this whole topic, and to me, like getting in front of the camera fully dressed was, not an easy task.
Scary enough, right?
Yes. And, after reading the whole book, it does make it more profound. And I guess it probably gets to the core of a lot of issues.
Exactly. My feeling was, and I write about this in the foreword of the book, is, people are bearing their souls and they're bearing their bodies. So um, there's nothing to hide behind. So since there's nothing to hide behind physically, people were very willing to share their feelings, emotional feelings about body image. But on the other hand, the thing that was important to me is that people would be comfortable. So some people are, they're nude, but they're not really. They're covered up by fabrics. And every single woman in the book got to help me narrow down the pictures of herself for the final edit. So we would narrow down the pictures together to maybe 4 or 5 pictures that I could choose from. And that was such an interesting process because, most people haven't seen themselves photographed without clothes. And they're like, oh my God, oh no, oh my butt's so big, oh my whatever. And we would look at these pictures together, and as the editing process went on and we go back and forth, go through them again, they would fall in love with themselves. They would say, oh yeah, I really like this versus this. Oh, I really like how I look. Oops, my phone. Amazing. It was, we would do it in my office with a big computer screen. I would download the images, and then we would sit together and look at them one by one. And people were at first very shocked about how they looked and really judgmental. And then as we went through them, we would just sit back and look at them again and again as we edited down, and they would start to fall in love with themselves and how they looked. And many people told me that it was a life-changing event to have that experience because they hadn't seen themselves that way before, and they've never had that opportunity to look at themselves in a more like dispassionate way, like, who is this person out here? And then come to find that they really liked how they looked. So with their help, I would narrow the pictures down to 4 or 5 pictures. And, you know, in the book, as I said, people are only as nude as they want to be. If they were comfortable, that was fine. If they felt really comfortable, they would expose their breasts. And if they were more conservative, we would wrap them, or I would wrap them in tulle. And, you know, some people are photographed just from the back. So it wasn't as like you would think a nude book, like it's not like Playboy. It's like
No, it's
these
very,
are these are images that are not sexualized in any way. These are just, here I am naked in front of you. Here are my feelings. And let's just look at each other with compassion, shall we? You know, I like the idea of, you get on a bus and it's full of people of all different shapes and sizes. And everybody's got a story. Everybody's got some cool story to tell. And it would be so amazing if we all could connect with each other on that level. I think that we would not have such terrible political problems right now
hmm.
if people were more compassionate.
Oh yes, definitely. I was gonna say it's a leap for me.
No, I don't mean taking off
What we're
clothes.
talking about to politics.
I mean, if everybody took the time to talk and try to be compassionate about other people's experiences, we would have a
Yeah,
better situation.
just the whole truth issue here
Yeah,
in our current political situation.
I know.
So, yes, this topic has been a quandary for me for a really long time. Aside from my own feelings and fears, I remember as a little kid um, feeling self-conscious about my body and realizing at the same time is I was, you know, a thin athletic child, so, you know, I looked healthy, wasn't overweight at all. And I remember my little sister was always overweight, and my mom was always a little overweight, although she was very comfortable with her body.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching my mom and sister and wondering how they had the confidence that they did when I didn't. And I knew that, you know, that my body looked, as
Okay.
far as, you know, other people would judge, better, you know, by the standards that people judge generally,
Mm-hmm.
but that I didn't feel as comfortable as they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't know the answer to that question, but I know that it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how you look.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you,
Yeah, that self-esteem thing.
mm-hmm,
It's a tricky thing. Mm-hmm.
and where it comes from, you know, because um, you know, if my mom was comfortable with her body, you would think that maybe I would have learned something from that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Those things about around growing up are so complicated, how we end up having strong self-esteem or not. But I mean, I find that sometimes I see public people like comedians or singers who are large and maybe not the traditional exemplar of beauty, and they come out with so much confidence. It's like when Harry met Sally, you want to say, I want what she's having, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's such a beautiful thing. And they're inspiring to me. Like, how did they get to be that way? What was it about their childhood? Did they have to work at it? Did they come by it naturally, or you know, is it only on stage? But what is it that makes people so confident and other people less so? And in a small way, it might be that this is who I am. Just helps people take a look at other people's experience and say, there's a person who's not my norm of beauty, but she's so confident. I want to consider that. Yeah.
Well, I know it's something you can grow into. I know it's something you can develop.
Hmm.
But the question that I haven't been able to answer is the same one that you were just stating, is how does it start in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, my parents told me I was beautiful. Um, I was never teased about my appearance. In fact, probably the opposite, even though as I got older, my skin broke out. No one ever teased me about it. I remember I had a big zit in the middle of my forehead, and one of the boys in my class tried to give me what he thought was a compliment because he could tell that I was feeling um, self-conscious about it.
Hmm.
And I remember telling him if he ever said anything like that again, I would punch him. And so it's a mystery to me, and not just me. I have seen, other people like me, or then the opposite, like you described, the comedians that are large, or some of the people in your book
Mhm.
that seemed very comfortable.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I think too, after we're out on our own and we get to have our own successes in life, um, your own specialty or whatever that is that people respect you for, then that really helps with the sense of self-esteem and confidence. But
I think there's a separate feelings around body image and appearance that aren't always, like, you can be very confident about your intellect or about your competence with your work, or and still have these issues or uh, feelings, emotions about appearance or body image.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very complicated. I'm not a therapist
No.
of the mind, but I know it's. I mean, I've had my many battles of self-esteem, and I think if I had been one of those more outgoing people, I mean, I'm sort of a split between introvert and extrovert. And if I had been more extrovert and less introvert, I would probably, um, be out there making big splashes instead of little splashes. But at this point in my life, I have loved my life, my work, my friends. I don't know that I would go back and redo it.
Yeah, I don't think you can, like, I'm very empathetic.
Mhm.
I think it's hard to be empathetic and very extroverted at the same time, because you're taking in or observing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, maybe so.
And I know you described yourself as an observer of
Mhm.
humanity, actually.
Definitely. That is I think that's my role and my gift. That's what I love to do, both in songwriting and in photography. Yeah. And lots of overlap for me. Mhm.
So what do you think is what was the biggest surprise or revelation that you gained when you were doing this project?
Well, I think to me, the biggest surprise was, first of all, that people were willing to do it. I I was really surprised, and it just seemed to snowball like, oh, yeah, that's cool. So I worked on this book for 5 years before I completed the whole book. I finished the essays, I finished the layout, I did it all myself because I wanted to show it. If I could find a publisher, I wanted to show it how I envisioned it. I and I knew that if I took a proposal to somebody, a publisher, um, and said, "Hey, I've got this idea for doing a book about nude women talking about body image," they would have said, "No way." But because I finished it, and this is what was so miraculous to me, is that I didn't know how I was going to find a publisher, but I went to a thing in Portland called Photo Lucida that is for art photographers, really, to show their work for publication or for gallery shows around the world. So almost the first person I met there at one of the intersects of experts with artists was a man who was a very well-known editor of a very well-known press. He had just retired, and he looked at my book and he said, "Oh my God," he goes, "you must get this published, and if you can't find a publisher, I will publish it. I'll come out of retirement and we will publish it." He said, "But let's see if we can get you a publisher." So he took it on, and then I went to New York and I talked to agents, and I ended up finding an agent. I don't remember how I found her, but I found her. She must have come referred to me by somebody, and she decided to take on the project. So she went to the New York Book Fair, and so did the editor that I was telling you about. They both had samples of my book, and they both took it to the same publishing company.
Hmm.
And he said, "You must publish this book." And she said, "Look at this book. I think you should publish it." But I had already signed a contract with her. So the Workman Press is the publisher under or their imprint is called Artisan. They took it on and they honored my layout. They had me work with a editor to refine the essays. They were enormous help to me and very supportive all the way through. So it got published, and then the very next year, publishing businesses went all to hell because the economy went to hell.
Mm.
So the timing of it was amazing. And
2000.
then not only that, but when it came out, we were on ABC's Good Morning America with 5 of the people in the book.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so it was meant to be. Um, it's been all over the world, and people still contact me about it when they find it. Um, Therapists give it out to their clients. Um, High schools use it. I don't know. It's very cool.
Well, I saw that Kate Winslet has a
Yeah,
little quote
she has
here.
the cover blurb. Yeah,
Yeah, and then you had a quote from Lynn Redgrave.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That was very, very nice.
so it got a lot of attention, and I can see why. It's very, as I said, it just makes a very profound impact, probably on everybody in a different way when they, when they would read it, probably depending on their own background and where
Yeah,
they're at.
I agree. In a way, the book is probably kind of a Rorschach of experience. People bring their own experiences to it and draw out of it what they need. The book offers no answers, no how-tos. It's just a look at other people's experience, which I think is really, really great, because I'm not trying to say, here's how to make your life different or make your life better, except to say, why can't we be more compassionate toward ourselves?
Definitely. So did it have a big effect on you personally as far as, how you saw yourself?
I I do think so. I mean, it's sort of a gradual process in working on the book and asking myself the questions that I pose to the other people. The first of which is, what do you love about your body? And having a sense of gratitude for the body. I think one woman in the book says she saw her body as just like a taxi cab to carry her mind around. And yeah, you just think about the incredible miracle of the body and all the working parts, and the fact that it does carry our mind around, but we're so integrated in mind body. And if we step back for a minute just to appreciate that incredible miracle, that in itself, I think it gives us pause to appreciate and feel compassion toward ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. And I see that same process in working with clients in my work.
Mm.
The process of the transformations, transitions that they go through, I always learn something from it too that applies differently to me than it did to them,
Mhm.
but it's always a mutual learning process.
Yeah. Hmm. Definitely. I think that's the privilege of the work we do.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely get to learn.
So in did you find any people that did the project or started to do the project that had regrets about it?
I did. I had one person drop out, and I said that's completely fine. I did a photo shoot with her. It was beautiful, but she had second thoughts, and so everybody else who decided to do it went forward with it. There's one woman who it took her at least 4 years to decide to do it, and so she's in the book. Uh,
Mm.
and she just had a story that she hadn't told her parents about, and they were. I mean, she was in her 50s, and her parents both passed away between. I believe they both passed away. I think so. Between the start of the photography and the finish of doing the book, and so she, at the last minute, decided that she was willing to participate. Then she let me interview her, and uh, which I did, and created a document of her words, and then she approved it. Yeah, yeah. So I was just helping her write. Mm-hmm.
Oh, did the people wrote their own?
Well, in some cases, I interviewed them in person, and in other cases, they answered questions. So I took their written answers and I composed them into an essay, and that reflected their responses.
Okay. So why did you choose such a wide age range?
Well, it just seems to me that well, for one thing, we look at old people, really old people, and we can be judgmental like crazy, like they don't matter anymore. But they do. They have such great stories and such great history and experience. I wanted to have such a broad range of people. So, and then the youngest one is 19,
Mm-hmm.
and she's somebody I've known since she was 3 years old. So we have a very lovely relationship, and I wanted youth and I wanted old age, the whole spectrum of who we are as women.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they get to the age of some of the people you had in your book, in their 80s and 90s, they, from just talking to people, I found that they a lot of times feel invisible.
Yeah, I think so.
I can imagine that, this would have been a very affirming experience for.
It was. I mean, one of the oldest women, Alice, she had a hard time getting up the steps to my studio, but she loved the experience, and she told her son she was going to be in a book of naked women, and he goes, "Good for you, Mom."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just talking to a woman that's just in her early 60s, and she was talking about how she likes to go dancing because it makes her feel beautiful and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was saying that, um, you could tell in her words and her expression that she was feeling like other people don't see her that way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah, that's unfortunate, but yeah.
it is, and I like that you included that wide range of
Mm-hmm.
ages in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Just recently, I had somebody ask me to do a portrait of her. She's in her mid 70s, probably, and very negative about how she sees herself, aging and so forth. And we had a wonderful experience, both of us, me as a photographer and um, this woman as the subject. And I think she felt really seen. And that is something she was so surprised about. It is like going to a therapist, though. I mean, when people come to you, they feel seen, they feel heard. And that is something that, we don't always get.
Yes, but you said earlier that you're not a therapist.
No.
But in the context of what you were doing, in a way, you were for
Yeah.
that time, because with the work that I do, people come to me, but the work that happens is within them
Mm-hmm.
through the experience that
Yeah.
they're having. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what was happening with you. It was a profound experience.
Right. So for all of us who see therapists, or who, like in this case, I'm talking about photography, but to be held, to be held gently and with love during this time that you're together is just such an incredible um, experience. Yeah.
Mhm. And that is like one of the main quests of people, is to be, known, to be understood,
Right. Yes.
be accepted.
Yeah, I
But
think you're right.
when they say, this is who I am, and, they feel acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And it can be life changing.
yes, definitely. In the stories in the book, that that was really portrayed, that they all had stories about the experience they'd gone through, but you could also tell that this experience of, presenting themselves in the "this is who I am" way, was a life-changing experience.
Yeah, it was. I have, it's the book. The very first woman in the book is somebody I've known since she was 3. This is a different one that I've known, or even younger. And she had cystic fibrosis, and she just passed away 2 weeks ago. She said, "Dear Rosanne, thank you again for asking me to be a part of this amazing project. This has been and continues to be such an amazing experience. With love, Emily."
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was the one who was
Cystic fibrosis, yeah.
Yeah, very young.
Yeah, and she just had her second lung transplant, and she passed away. Yeah.
It's too bad.
But yeah, so she was very happy to be part of the project, though.
Yeah. Well, she had to live a lot in a short amount of time.
She did. Boy, she did, yeah.
So, well, I'm glad that we had a chance to talk about this subject, and I would, encourage anybody who is listening to us to get the book. And again, "This Is Who I Am" by Rosanne Olson.
It's on Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. And just think about it, because that's, as Rosanne said, everyone reacts to it afterwards. I can't personally imagine myself doing what the women in this book did, but the process of thinking about that and thinking about my own feelings about it, and feelings that I've had all my life, the ones that I've resolved and the ones that maybe I still have to resolve, that was a very enlightening process in itself. So I think any woman, or even a man, because I know that men have some similar issues themselves, I think that anyone would get something out of just well, even as Rosanne said, that you can't read this book without feeling more compassion for other people and for yourself. Because we all have gone through different things that have brought us to where we are.
Right.
Anything to add to that, or say?
No, I appreciate this opportunity. This is a topic I love talking about, and I think it's an important topic. It's probably never going to go away. And yeah, just if people take a look at the book and ask themselves the question, what do I love about my body? What do I love about myself? Yeah, it's a good question.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you for being here and talking about this, and thank you for doing your book.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks very much, Kate.
All right.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.